Okay. Well, my remote control is not working. Hi, this is Don Sutton, your professor of real estate here at UCLA and Cal State LA, and today we're going to talk about escrows, which is a very important part of not only your principles, but also the state exam, and also your career. Every property that you get that has an accepted offer, where there are two people or two parties or two entities that have decided to agree to terms on the contracts that you've written and the counteroffers that you've gone back and forth for. They decided, let's get it done. And most escrows are going to be anywhere from 7 days for a simple cash transaction to 180 days for a commercial transaction, because it's a much more complicated transaction than just buying a house or buying a fixer-upper condo for cash. In a typical escrow, it used to be 30 days, and now we're kind of at the stage where the average days in escrow are roughly between 23 and 25 days, provided there's a few things that are missing, and I'll talk about that in a second, okay? So what we want to do is, in this thing, we have to understand that escrow is highly recommended for any sale of real property. It's recommended, but it's not required. I have a client right now who's doing a 1031 exchange. He's sold a condo, and he took the money and he's buying a little house that he's going to rent out. Well, we're doing a private transaction, and he doesn't have to have an escrow, he just chooses to, okay? You should use, but not necessarily required, any loans or refis. So if a property purchase requires a loan or a refinance, you definitely want to use an escrow company, which is not required. And again, like I told you, exchanges for 1031, which we'll talk about on a later date in a later principles class. Required without exception is, remember, when you have a real estate license, you can also sell businesses, and if the business has a liquor license, you must have an escrow company handle the deal, because the state of California requires it. If there are any security sales, such as bonds, stocks, trust information, things like that, you must have an escrow. And if there's any court-ordered transfers, death in the family, divorce, a will that's being executed, it also must have an escrow company to handle the paperwork, okay? The Escrow Act is in the Financial Code. Remember that escrow is a neutral party. They do not make decisions. The buyer and the seller make decisions. In fact, the buyer and seller are the only people that make a decision in escrow. The agents don't. The agents can recommend a title company, they can recommend a termite company, they can recommend certain activities. But to be honest with you, the people that tell escrow what to do are the buyer and the seller. And so what happens is, escrow processes 21, 31 days worth of paperwork, gets the loan and all that kind of stuff done. Once they have everything together, escrow and the contract become a dual agency, where the escrow calls for funding. They say to the bank, okay, we have everything here, you're happy, we're happy, send us the money so we can close escrow, okay? And call for funding is almost always on the state exam. What's interesting is most escrow companies are a corporation under the California Civil Code, but an attorney can be an escrow officer, and also a real estate broker, as like myself, can be the transaction coordinator and also the escrow officer, but we're limited to 10 a year, which is 1 a month. And honestly, it's not bad extra income if somebody says, hey, can you handle this for us? You know, it's not that hard, okay? What's unique to California, and most people will agree that California actually consists of 2 Californias, and some people would say 4, but Northern California, the title company is almost always the escrow handler as well. Whereas in Southern California, more often than not, you will have a separate title and a separate escrow company. Now, there's no law that says it could be either way. It's just kind of how things developed. So once you get north of San Luis Obispo, roughly, it becomes more and more an issue where title is also going to be the escrow company in two. Is there an advantage to it? Not really, because it's a neutral party. The only real advantage of it is if you own your own escrow company down here in Southern California and you develop a pretty good business and maybe you have an escrow assistant helping you out, it's a really good side gig if you want to have your own escrow company, but you have to have a broker license first, okay? So there's 4 functions of escrow. They hold the funds, they're clearinghouse for all the liens and refinancing. They prorate all the taxes and also prepaid interest and things. And then they prepare all the documentation for recordation. Recordation is actually handled by the title rep, who is sent to the county recorder's office with the paperwork to record in the county recorder's office. They're authorized to call for the buyer's documents and funds. Escrow does not order any reports, and that might be a trick question you get on the state exam. Escrow receives the reports. Who orders the reports? It could be the agent, it could be the buyer, it could be the seller, okay? They do not choose the termite company. They do not choose the home warranty company. They do not contact the city for city pre-sale reports. The city pre-sale reports are always the responsibility of the listing agent and the seller, and they must be done by law. Do not ignore that, because you will have a legal quagmire if you do not, okay? And they do not release funds if something cancels. I have something canceling right now because the condo HOA association has a lot of problems. And the buyer's like, you know what, they're just not repairing anything. They have the money, but they're being cheap and they don't want to repair anything. So I'm just gonna go out and find a different condo. So we're canceling. And because they're canceling, what we're doing is we have to get written instructions to release the buyer deposit. Escrow just does not go, okay, you're canceling, okay, here you go. No, they can't. They have to get written instructions from both parties signed. Escrows can be handled for a fee only if the broker is acting as a real estate agent or principal in the transaction. So, as a broker, if I wanted to handle an escrow, I can actually charge a fee to handle it. Let's say that Sally asked Billy to sell her house that she's been renting out from him for a long time. Well, she and he can contact me and say, hey, can you do the escrow paperwork and do all the legal stuff? And I could do it for a fee. That's what we're talking about. And just remember that as an agent, under your principles and also under your practice, you want to double check your escrow instructions. They're typed up by humans. Humans make mistakes, okay? If you see something that does not match the contract, don't blow up. Just contact the escrow agent and say, hey, you know what? This says it's a 30-day escrow, but actually it's supposed to be on or before a specific date. Can you please repair this before anybody signs? And just be nice about it, because people do make mistakes, okay? Order all the reports and escrow docs and lien and stuff like that before you open escrow so that it gets into escrow in a timely manner. Otherwise, you're going to be delaying, and you don't want to be delayed. And again, get off the phone. I'm telling you, the biggest reason why agents fail in the real estate business is because they spend all their time on the phone yelling at everybody or telling the story or this is going on and what do you think and stuff like that. Stop it. Just stop it, okay? The fact of the matter is that every communication, as much as possible, 90% of the communication should be in text and by email to all parties with no adjectives and no adverbs, because adjectives and adverbs convey emotion, okay? You want to be as matter of fact as possible. If you're a person who wants to call everybody and say, well, did you know that this happened? Oh, and by the way, and you, by the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I worked so hard. But all you did was stir the pot, because now everybody's getting emotional because you did, okay? Don't do it. Your job is to go out and find the next business. There are 3 ways to terminate escrow. One is, congratulations, you completed the whole contract, everything's done, and you got paid. Then there's a cancellation for some reason. Let me turn this just a little bit so you can see this better. Let's say that, now I've had this happen, a seller passes away during escrow. And the family says, well, we need to go through probate and stuff like that. Can we hold off or put this on the back burner and cancel it? It's okay to cancel. Let's say the buyer has this happen. Buyer loses their job in the middle of escrow. They can't get the loan anymore. Okay, you cancel by mutual agreement. Everybody's, sorry, wish you good luck, bye. Okay? The other is a court steps in and says, uh-oh, we have a problem. The husband and wife actually own the house and they're getting divorced, and the husband's trying to sell the house without the wifey knowing about it. That could be a problem. If either party wants to terminate escrow, they have to get written permission from the other party. And death does not cancel the escrow. The heirs are binded to the agreement because of the contract that's signed. Now, if the buyer is like, well, you know what, if probate's going to take me 12 months, I got to move tomorrow, they have the right to cancel, but they have to do that in writing, okay? But technically, even if grandma dies in the middle of escrow, technically the buyer still has the right to purchase the property, whether the heirs like it or not. And if the buyer wants to wait until probate's over, the court's going to say, wait till court's over, regardless of what the family thinks, okay? They're formal instructions. They're based on what's in the contract. Read the instructions carefully. Read your financial statements carefully. Make sure that the seller has enough money to pay off the loan from the proceeds of the sale. That could be a problem. And make sure that the closing dates are actually the date of closing. If at the close of escrow, and this has never happened to me, except for one time, and it wasn't me. If the seller says, you know what, screw you, I'm not going to pay any commissions, he could tell escrow not to pay the brokers. And then you as an agent have to go out and sue the seller, who may disappear into the mist of something, to get your commissions back. The only time I've ever had this happen, the only time in the hundreds of transactions I've completed, is the seller's agent just never responded to anybody. Escrow, title, the seller would call me asking advice on, hey, I got to fill this paperwork out, he won't call me back, I don't know what's going on, that kind of stuff. And he was telling escrow, can he get my agent's commission, because he's not helping. But he still got paid, and I did work for 2. But yeah, normally the commissions always get paid. It's pretty specific. So on the PowerPoint, I'm not going to go through everything on this. The fact of the matter is that any one of these people, if they decide to get a burr up their backside and screw you over, they will screw everybody over, and the escrow won't close. This is why when you're in escrow, you're kind of a juggler. You're kind of trying to make sure, politely and humbly and at your service, sir, yes, 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 getting all these people to work together so that you get paid, okay? And your client is happy, whether it be the buyer or the seller, all right? So take a look at this list. And you might even want to keep this list handy to make sure that you're contacting the right people at the right time. Short sales, they're not very common right now. Generally what this means is someone usually has either lost a job or passed away. COVID, there's quite a bit of this. And the property is worth less than the bank note or the mortgage that they have. Go to your training at your office about this. It's not really going to be that big of a deal either to know right now or on the state exam. You're not going to see this very often, okay? The other type of escrow is, common reasons for short sales, again, death, loss of job, divorce, that kind of thing. Cash sales usually take 7 to 21 days. It usually is an investor. It must be a cash-only buyer. A hard money loan is not cash. You're going to get these investors who go, I got cash. I got $2 million, and I would like to find out if you have a property that I can buy and flip and fix and stuff like that, right? And you do, and you hit them up and say, hey, I got this house. I want to close in 7 days. I need a cash investor. And they send you over an offer, and it's hard, but that's not cash because they're still in appraisal. Somebody still has to approve the loan. Cash is cash in the bank, okay? And make sure you stick to that, all right? Because you will have problems. 45-day escrows are common with tenant-occupied property. Ignore the VA and state loan home buyer programs because now these are normally closing in right at that 30-day mark, okay? Why? Technology is in advance quite a bit right now. Commercial escrows, again, usually take 60 days or more. A lot of times they take 180. And the reason is it's a much more complicated deal, okay? Because the finances are coming from the big banks. And you know the big banks just work so fast, right? No, they don't. Mortgage brokers work really quickly, a lot quicker than banks for people wanting to buy a house. Well, with commercial and office buildings and shopping malls and stuff, you've got tenants, you've got utilities, you've got the finances of the businesses, you've got the finances of the renters that get looked over. They look at all the profit and loss statements and everything. So it's going to take a lot longer, and also there's a lot more inspections involved. Is it bigger money? Oh yeah, for the agent, it's big. You have a big deal, I mean, you can make a 6-figure income in 1 year just by one deal. But it is a lot of work. And you're going to need a lot more training than what I can offer you. So who gets paid first? We talked about this earlier in a different video. Remember, if there's money coming in from the equity of the home, the IRS and the taxmen get first. Assessments such as HOAs, lien holders such as child support and judgments, and then number 4, the loans get paid off, and then any agreements to the contrary such as HELOCs or private loans. A sale on contingent of purchase is where you're buying a larger home or downsizing into a smaller home with the equity that's built up in the house that the person's in right now. So this is how families, and I just recently did this one from Compton going to Whittier, okay? He, for example, he bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. He was single. He had a girlfriend, no kids, no nothing, but he had 3 dogs. So we needed a house on a big lot. We found a really nice place in Compton, very quiet area, over by Cal State Dominguez Hills. He stuck it out there for 8 years, got married. They had a little girl. She was now 3 years old, and he said, I got to get her out of this house. She's like a terror on wheels, right? So he's like, I need a bigger place. She wants her own bedroom and needs to be bigger, and she's got toys, and we need an office at home. So I'm like, okay, let's go. So we sold a house, moved into the equity of moved the equity into a vacant house. There's no tax issues and stuff like that, and they're happy. And this is a big deal because when you have a listing like that and they're moving up to a bigger property, you can actually get 3 sales out of this. 1, you list the property for sale. 2, somebody walks into your open house and they write the best and highest and most unique offer for that listing. So now you're the buyer agent, you're the dual agent, and now you're moving up to the new property, and that's 3 sales. So one of the things I always tell agents when they're starting out, and listen very carefully, go out and knock on those doors where they've lived in that 2-bedroom for at least 10 years and ask them, have you thought about moving up into a bigger home? You have the equity. All right, great way to start business, okay? All right, and then so we'll get on to the next videos. Thanks for paying attention. It's not going to be agency and ethics. I think I already shot that one. But keep up on your homework. Keep studying those exams if you're going to be taking the real estate exam pretty soon. And watch out for the next videos, okay? Thanks for listening.